Hello, everyone. Hope all of you are doing well. I'm Saurabheshwar, welcoming all of you to this discussion session today. And first and foremost, I would like to extend our best wishes and hope all of you at your end are doing really, really well. To start off today's session, I would like to first introduce a little bit about the work that we do at Catalyst. Over the last 10 years at Catalyst, we have been focused on creating human service professionals by mentoring, guiding, training students, young professionals, graduates from schools, colleges, and universities with opportunities that align to enabling people to overcome poverty, create better access to health, with a special emphasis, of course, always on mental health, uh, livelihood opportunities, creating opportunities of employment, creating aligned opportunities in the public policy sector. Many of our students from the recent past have gone ahead and become practitioners in their fields of social intervention, creating impact, working very closely with grassroots level organizations as well as people, and trying to make a more resilient community from local to national levels as we speak. Talking about resilience, and that is one of the key words for today's discussion session. I am very, very pleased, I must admit, to have amongst us Dr. Ananya Sinha as the speaker for our session today. Dr. Ananya, as most of you might be aware of, is such an individual who very interestingly, I felt, has, or I would rather say, positions herself in two very critical aspects of our economy, I would say. One is imparting direct education as an assistant professor with Christ University, Bangalore, that she has been doing, for over many, many years. And the other is being a certified RCI counseling psychologist for the last 10 years. The reason why we felt that was a very interesting combination because through the session, we are all very keen to know how Dr. Sinha connects the two ends of her imparting the education towards mental health aspirants, mental health enthusiasts, scholars, students, and on the other hand, also tries to intervene into the clinical domain of counseling and psychosocial support. Dr. Sinha is an affiliate member of the American Psychological Association, and she pursued her MPhil in clinical psychology from the Institute of Behavior, Human Behavior and Allied Sciences, IHBAS, Delhi, and her PhD from the prestigious Department of Clinical Psychology, NIMHANS, an institute of national importance. Dr. Sinha extensively worked with the multicultural clients and is specialized in cognitive behavior therapy, CBT, dialectical behavior therapy, trauma-focused work, couple therapy, and LGBT affirmative therapy. So as we understand that the spectrum is pretty broad as well as pretty deep. Dr. Sinha has written books, chapters, published her research in international journals, and had been invited as speakers in multiple international conferences. She has served as a clinical psychologist in Dum Dum Central Correctional Home. I am personally very interested if in this session we might get a little anecdote about her experience working in a correctional setting. So the Dum Dum Correctional Home, as some of you might be aware, is in West Bengal. And she has also held teaching positions in the University of Calcutta and the Indian Psychoanalytical Society. Before I pass on the baton to Dr. Sinha, one very important expectation that I would like to share with all our participants out here today is that over the last, I feel almost close to a month, uh, me and Dr. Sinha have been going back and forth over the session that we are conducting today. And very interestingly, the build up to this session, I would say, has been actually pretty organic. It has kind of taken into account many of our personal to professional, to national crises that we all possibly have been reeling with, at least over the last 2 months for sure, if not for the last 1.5 years. But nevertheless, what we want to focus a lot in today's session is to build clarity about how we sustain ourselves better, and we definitely how we keep the mind over matter for things ahead in our plannings for the days to come by. So my earnest request to every participant in this session would be that utilize the next 1 hour to the fullest possibility of being as interactive with Dr. Sinha, because I've realized that I understood the importance of this session most, just not with one meeting, but with a series of interaction which helped me to understand how do we position this session amongst all of you. So through my experience, I would urge all of you that use your chat box, use your mic, use your video. I know bandwidth can be an issue during these days with the online framework. But again, if anyone can keep their videos on, I'm sure that will help steer this conversation and this interaction to a great extent. I took up a lot of time to start off the session, but I would like to definitely take this opportunity to formally pass on the session to Dr. Sinha. Thank you so much for your time. In spite of your busy schedule, I know that you have been teaching, training, mentoring, helping, counseling, interviewing, uh, selecting people for masters. And in spite of that, you have been able to create this opportunity for all of us. Thanks a lot. To all the participants, please enjoy the session ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that very warm welcome. It was definitely very heartfelt, and I do agree that we had multiple interactions, and I had the opportunity to know also the soul of Catalyst Learning Center. Like, we had been trying to understand that where can we have a common point, and how can I contribute in any way possible. And I thought that during this pandemic, it might be a good idea to have an open discussion about how can we build resilience. So I have tried to keep the session pretty simple. Simple because I was expecting people from all domains. So I don't know what is the uh, composition of the participants here, but I've tried to keep it simple because I really am looking forward to sharing some practical tips that will help you in building resilience, because these are tough times. So without any further ado, I'll just start the session. Thank you again for giving me this opportunity. And thank you all for joining the session. So while I begin, I'll just read out something, and then I'll tell you where I'm reading it out from. When the last layers of subcutaneous fat had vanished, and we looked like skeletons disguised with skin and rags, we could watch our bodies beginning to devour themselves. The organism digested its own protein, and the muscles disappeared. Then the body had no powers of resistance left. One after another, the members of the little community in our hut died. Each of us could calculate with fair accuracy whose turn would be next, and when his own would come. After many observations, we knew the symptoms well, which made the correctness of our prognosis quite certain. We won't last long, or this is the last one, this is the next one, we whispered to each other. And when during our daily search for lice, we saw our naked bodies in evening, we thought alike. This body here, my body, is really a corpse already. What has become of me? I am but a small portion of great mass of human flesh, of a mass behind barbed wire, crowded into few earthen huts, a mass of which daily a certain portion begins to rot because it has become lifeless. This I'm reading out from the book. I'm sure many of you might have read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search of Meaning. We all know Viktor Frankl. He was one of the well-known Austrian neurologists and psychiatrists. He was one of the Holocaust survivors. And here in this book, he describes um, what his experience was when he was in one of the camps in Auschwitz. When I read through this, and when I was first, like I had read this book many, many years back, and I remember very clearly when I read this particular paragraph, I always felt that how can a man survive out of this? What is left? Like you are saying, I'm lifeless, it's a corpse. How can I survive back? And yet we know he did, like we all do. He was one of the survivors who came out and he could write this book. He had his own therapy. He started his own form of therapy called the logotherapy, which was all meaning oriented therapy. So, this particular piece gives us a lot of strength and probably a belief that there can be an end to all that we are experiencing now. And still, we can come out of this and we can still have a good life, a meaningful life. So, with this, I start today's session. I'll just share my screen. Please let me know if it is visible. It's visible, right? Okay, thank you. So, mental well being, building resilience in the time of a pandemic. So, whenever we talk or we understand, we think of resilience, the first thing that comes to our mind probably is how to define what is resilience. So, psychologists have defined resilience as the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress, such as family and relationship problems, serious health problems, or workplace and financial stresses. As much as resilience involves bouncing back from the difficult times, it also involves profound personal growth. So we often feel that what is it that some people are being able to come back and say that, okay, I learned this from this particular experience and this is where I am. I'm so grateful this happened to me and I am happy that I'm out of this. And there are some people who will probably find it very hard and challenging and struggling to go through it. So our research says that probably it is this one characteristic of resilience that makes all the difference. And there is also a term called post-traumatic growth, which I'm here talking about as the profound personal growth, that it is not only about bouncing back, but also about growing personally. What have I learned from this experience? What can I take back? And this is what is making me now who I am. So that, in a nutshell, is resilience. And the good news is resilience can be learned. So it's not that, although there is a very, very minor genetic component, it's very minor. It's like just a little bit. The good news is it can be learned. You can learn it at any point of time. And adverse experiences like this, the one that we are going through right now, is one of the major teachers of resilience. Now, is resilience equivalent to optimism? Honestly, I was actually going through some of the. I'm very new to Instagram now, so I'm just trying to scroll through Instagram pages, some of the psychology pages, and all. And in many places, I found people are being asked like, be positive, and that was like a bit disturbing because are we actually trying to deny what is happening? There is a concept called toxic positivity. Are we pushing ourselves to that toxic positivity and are we saying that, oh God, everything is going to be absolutely perfect, nothing is happening, we will be fine now, just be positive, focus on all the good things that's happening in your life? There is truth and value to part of what is being said there. But if we only say that optimism is the way ahead, then probably we are making a difference. making a mistake. Why? Because in one of the survivors of Nazi camp, he was asked, his name was Stockdale, and he was actually um, some kind of leader in one of the camps, and he was asked that what what was that one factor that led people to survive? Who survived and who didn't? So what he said was very interesting. He said that, oh, the optimists, they didn't survive. That was very interesting because we always see it's the optimistic person who always survives. And when the interview further asked him, he said that, you know what, they were just oblivious of what is happening. The optimists here were trying to deny what is the reality now. That probably made them, and he used the term, probably made them die of a heartbreak, because they were very hopeful. Okay, tomorrow everything will be fine and we will be able to have Christmas together, and we'll reunite with everyone, we'll get back everything. Probably that was not to be. And when that went, what went from their life was hope. So there is a difference between realistic expectation from the future, which is based on something I'll just talk about in the next slide. It is all very, very important to understand that we have to keep the hope alive. But the hope cannot be kept alive through a process of denial or toxic positivity. So yes, optimism in some situations, conjuring a sense of possibility can be a very powerful tool. It's very powerful. Yes, it is like something might happen. There is a possibility of something happening that can be very, very powerful. But for bigger challenges, a clear sense of reality, even if slightly pessimistic, is far more important. So at the very onset, I want to make this very clear that here we are not to discuss about optimism. It is one component, yes, and a very important component, but not the overarching component of resilience. Resilience, on the contrary, is how can we bounce back? How can we personally grow after what has happened to us? How can we survive with hope? So I have sort of spaced it out into multiple steps, and please feel free to ask me whatever questions you have. So the first is facing the reality, just like I was telling you. What happens when things like this happen? We display a myriad of emotions. What has the pandemic done to us? Let's first start asking this to ourselves. For each one, the experience of pandemic is different. We all are experiencing the same collective trauma of the pandemic, but our experiences are very, very different. For some, it is being stuck in the house with your family. For some, it is being stuck with your husband, who is regularly engaging in domestic violence. For some, it is losing a job. For some, it is closing down the business, which was flourishing so well and you had such wonderful plans. For some, it is not being able to meet your college friends, and you were so much looking forward to actually meeting all of them. And 1.5 years down, you have not met any of them. For some, it is also losing some of the good opportunities abroad. For some, it is not being able to meet their spouses who are stuck in another country and the borders are closed. And for some, unfortunately, there has been significant loss. We have lost many, many close ones particularly during the last 2 months. Probably this particular session, I will not be able to cover the grief processing part, which is beyond the scope of this session. Probably that is, although an important aspect of resilience, but it needs to be discussed with a little different approach. But the reality is, we all have different experiences during this pandemic. And because we have such experiences of despair, loss, unforeseen events, frustration, this chronicity of the thing, like it's chronically going on and on and on. Just there's no end. We thought there is an end, and then the other came back, bam. And we are thinking there might be another third wave. So in this situation, we might experience all sorts of emotion: anger, frustration, sadness, depression. Some might also be anxious, jealous. There will be so many emotions, and all of them are valid emotions. But behind all this emotion is a reality, the reality of the present. And the first step is not to deny the reality, but to tell yourself that this is it now. Yes, I have lost my job. Yes, the business is doomed. Yes, I have to now stay with this person who is regularly abusing me for at least the next 3-4 months because I can't go out, I can't travel. Yes, this is the reality. However simple this step might sound, this is probably the most difficult step because we always constantly push away these things. This is difficult. This is a difficult fact to accept. So the most important thing that you need to ask here is, do I truly understand and accept the reality of the situation? Both the components are important. Do I truly understand and accept the reality of the situation? If you have asked this question to yourself and you've actually got a concrete answer, you're probably ready to go to the next step. The next step is probably one of the most important component, probably the deal breaker when it comes to resilience building: the search for meaning. And yes, I'm very much influenced by Viktor Frankl, Nietzsche, all existential psychologists, but I have tried to keep it very simple here in the slide. Whatever happens to us, if, like, particularly this pandemic, like I was saying, if different people had different experiences, the question that we often ask ourselves is like, why me? God, why me? Why did you have to choose me? Why did you do this to me? What have I done? I've always lived my life so well. I've always been helpful. I did not interfere with anybody else's life. I've helped others. Why? Why did you do this to me? Now, this despair will probably not help us look beyond the present. What has happened has probably happened. Resilience is about what next. So, this same question of why me can be asked differently. So, instead of that despair, why me? Ask, why me? Why did this thing happen to me? Why did I have this experience? It was also fine. Everything was set. I was about to launch this big, huge project. Then, why did suddenly this thing happen to me? When you go there with this curiosity to understand the underlying meaning of the event, that is where your search for meaning begins. Albert Ellis, he is, I'm sure people from psychology will be aware of him. He's one of the famous psychologists. He has worked with cognitions. He's an REBT therapist. So he said that during crisis situation like this, and when we look at pandemic, of course, he did not mention pandemic when he said that adverse situations such as these. He talked about the ABCD component, but here ABCD means, how am I seeing the adversity? What is that adversity to me? And B is the beliefs associated with that adversity. Then C is the emotion, and D is what am I doing about changing that meaning, that negative meaning I've associated with the adversity. So the meaning we associate with an adversity is very powerful. If we just ask this question, that why did this happen to me? What is the meaning of this? What can I learn from this? Okay, now that I have this particular experience, what are the strengths that I'm exploring about myself now? Did I know that I had these strengths earlier? Did I know that I had the capability of facing such situations? So many hidden talents are coming out because of this lockdown. People are exploring so many things. So although on one part where we are definitely there is a huge loss, on the other part there is some gain maybe. So the question of why me has to be just changed in its tonality. And that will basically do the purpose of the next point, that is change the narrative. It's very important we change the narrative. There are two activities that I've mentioned here. One is the storytelling activity, and the second is the upside of stress activity. These are positive psychology skills and techniques. So, changing the narrative typically means, let's say today I'm telling the story that I'm just one of the most miserable person because I lost my job. I don't have any money. I am undergoing a difficult divorce because my wife refused to stay with me after sharing so much time during the pandemic. I don't know what to look forward to. It is so difficult to really go through this. And I don't know why did this thing happen to me, and how will I go to the next step? The storytelling activity helps you change the narrative. The storytelling activity will help you look at it from a different perspective. So if you can just change the narrative and say that I lost the job, but is it something that I probably in this particular situation, many people have lost the job. So it was not something that I have something wrong with me for which I lost this job, something not directed towards me. Maybe for a very long time, I was thinking of changing my company. Just did not have the power or the courage to just do it. Now that I have lost the job, I think I can also explore other things that I like doing. Did I always like my job? Did I like the role that I had? And with my wife, if really she did not enjoy staying with me during this entire lockdown, of course, that indicates something is wrong with the way we share our space. Maybe we are not made for each other. Maybe we were not made for each other earlier. So it's probably good that we are leaving each other rather than continuing to stay with each other in a space where we know, like, this day probably would have come later. But also in this pandemic, I realized who the real friends are. I realized the power of so many people coming and asking me, how am I doing, helping out. I understood the power of sharing. I understood the power of caring. And probably this is a time, since after a long time I have this time to myself, probably I will be able to start some new thing which I had been holding back for a very long time. We have stories, real life stories, where people have started businesses during this lockdown. I always keep on jokingly talking about the sanitizer developer, like not the business distributors of sanitizers. Did they really think that they will have a boom like this ever? So whatever is happening, there is always a positive side. We just need to look at it and retell the story in a way that we accept that this has happened. And we also say, okay, there is an upside to it also, which is what the next point is, the upside of stress activity. All you need to do is find three things, just three things, which you think are an upside of the difficult situations you're going through. If you're stuck at home, what are the upsides of being stuck at home? If you have lost your job, what are the upsides? If your business is not working well, what are the upsides? Ask yourself, what are the upsides? Just three things. Because Viktor Frankl said that you can find meaning even in the most hopeless situations. The most hopeless situations are also the situations where we find the strongest of purpose of our lives. And if you're really stuck and you don't know which direction to go forward to, just find and follow your values. Your values are actually your true North Star. If you very strongly feel for caring for people, if the value of compassion is most important in you, follow that and do something. Maybe that will help you understand the meaning of this particular event well, and how you can engage yourself more meaningfully in the future. Whatever values you hold, that is what you need to recognize, and that is what you need to follow. That is your true North Star. So, meaning at the end is about understanding why we had this experience. Because that which does not kill us makes us strong. And in this particular context, it makes us stronger by giving us a purpose. One of the major aspects of this pandemic has been the uncertainty associated with that. Despite us doing so many things, we had been taking care of our safety, right? We had been wearing masks, we had been ensuring that we don't meet a lot of people, we don't go out. We had done our bit as much as possible. Of course, there were people who hadn't, but most of us had. Despite that, it just came with the second wave. So this situation of uncertainty and a feeling that nothing is in my control is probably what is making the situation so difficult to navigate through. So we have this concept of learned helplessness, where we learn to be helpless because whatever we do, we don't get a definite positive result. But resilience is actually just the opposite. Resilient individuals interpret setbacks as temporary and changeable. So they don't give up. One important thing we need to understand is we can't give up taking care of ourselves, ensuring our safety, trying to get the vaccine, whatever needs to be done. We just have to go on and on and on and on. We have to keep trying to get our business back, our work back, our identity back, our profession, whatever we have lost. We have to just keep telling ourselves that what I'm experiencing right now is a temporary setback, but changeable. And I just need to try. Let's not give in to the learned helplessness pattern. And the best way to do it is by starting pretty simple. Take the control back. There can be lots of things which are going out of your control. But ask yourself, what are the things in my control? Yes, I cannot go to my husband who is in another country. What can I do? I can call him every day, talk to him every day, be with him as much as possible. If he's getting a house done there, let me help him with decorating the house. What can I do from here to help him? Is there any other paperwork that I can help him with? That is your purpose as well during this situation. So do what is in your control. You cannot change what is happening. Certain things are not in your control. How many people are getting affected? How many people are not getting the bed? It can be so frustrating when you're trying so hard, but sometimes somebody close to you is not getting a bed. But all you can do is you can try. So keep trying. If one person is not being able to help you, go to the other person, go to another person. Just keep trying over and over and over again. So do that. Ask yourself, okay, what is in my control? Let me do it. And in uncertain periods like this, it is very important to maintain a routine. I know for youngsters, even for us, I think all of us, we are struggling with the routine. Most of our days, it starts with like, okay, my work starts at 9, so I'll get up at 8:55, look at my mobile, jump out of the bed, and sit in front of the screen, not eat anything, not give myself time. Now, this is very, very detrimental to resilience. It's detrimental for your mental health, your well-being, and your resilience. It doesn't help. It's telling you how uncontrollable the situation is. So, maintaining a routine, particularly in times like this, is very, very crucial. Because of course, when the lockdown will be over, I'm hoping that we'll be able to go out to our office or whatever, school, college, wherever, a particular time, come back. Anyway, we are forced into a routine because of the structure of the day. So bring back that structure. Try to have a wake up time which is regular every day. Not like today I'm waking up at 6, tomorrow I'm waking up at 12, and the next day I'm waking up at 10. It's very, very wrong when it comes to your mental health and well-being. I'm wrong, of course. I'm not saying from a moralistic perspective. No, I'm just saying that this is very essential for your well-being. Try to wake up a little bit early. I'm not saying that, okay, wake up 5 o'clock in the morning, but a little bit early, maybe before 8 if possible, and maintain a routine. Give yourself some time in the morning. It is so important that you don't rush your day. Because the moment you rush your day, you will feel the entire day is engulfing you and everything is going out of control. Instead, take out a time for yourself and do something. If it's like a little think like doing a little bit of yoga, spending a little bit of time with yourself while you're having your tea, watering your plants, listening to some meditative music, doing meditation if possible. Of course, I'll talk about this in a little bit later. But you start a day, you have a morning ritual, then you move on to your work space. Create a different space for your work. Whatever work you do, if it's studying, if it is just random writing something, have a separate space for that. And then take breaks, walk, and come back. And have a particular time for eating, a particular time for sleeping. This is very, very essential. That will also help you take the control back. The fourth one is creatively improvise. And there is only one thing that I would like to say here, that is, make the most of what you have. We may not have a lot of things here. We may not have the freedom to go out. We may not have a freedom to meet our people, our relatives. We may not have the freedom to just have the convenience of our regular living. We may have been taken away a lot of things for which our work has become affected. But ask yourself, what do I have? Okay, for example, when our university shifted to this online thing, the first meeting that we had, it seemed impossible. How can we teach a class of almost 100 students remotely, where there are practicals, where they have to see clients? How can we do it? Even for seeing clients, we had never been trained into seeing clients through this online platform. We did not get that training. Our training was mostly of face-to-face sessions. But we adapted. We asked ourselves, okay, what do I have? I have an internet. I have my laptop. Let's make the best out of it. And we did. And look how we have done. The entire clinical psychology fraternity has shifted to online. Hospitals have become digitalized in so many ways. Consultations have become digitalized. Could we ever think that there will be colleges, exams, admission duties, everything going on online? We couldn't ever imagine that. Now everything is possible. And how did this come? Because some resilient individual thought that I will not give up. Let's make the most of what we have. But while we are pushing ourselves to make the most of what we have, let's understand that this is probably not the time to just run and actually get everything done. We are going through a pandemic. We can't deny that. We are going through a difficult situation. And more than anything, we need to be self-compassionate and we need to engage in self-care. We have to take care of ourselves. The way we are ensuring safety for ourselves, the way we are remembering to wear the mask and wash our hands and use the sanitizer. Let's also prioritize self-care here because we are being chronically impacted by the adverse effects of it. And if we don't nurture, we don't heal ourselves, we'll never be able to come out of it. And self-care can be boring, but do it. All these things that I was telling you, wake up early, do an exercise, boring sometimes. But once you do it, you might, and most people actually see they start enjoying it. But however boring it might sound, do you stop taking bath or do you stop brushing your teeth? But why do we stop taking care of ourselves? So even spending 2 minutes just standing in front of the mirror and actually taking a while to comb our hair can make a lot of difference. Or if we just go and cook our favorite food, because I'm tired of just rushing and cooking and doing something in between work. So let me just say that today I have 1 hour time, I'll just cook what I want to cook. Just taking a time out for at night to apply that moisturizer and looking at yourself, smiling at yourself, watching nice things that you like, reading that book which you have not read for so many years because you did not have time. The pandemic might have taken away a lot of things from us, but it has given us the precious gift of time, only if we know how to use it. Yes, we are juggling work, like Shorabisha was saying, that so many things we had to do, and 24 hours seems so less. But you feel surprised at the end of the day when you think that, okay, I have actually managed. How did I manage doing all these things? Did I really know that I had this ability? This pandemic is teaching us a lot about ourselves. A lot. We are seeing ourselves from a very different light altogether. Many people are realizing that my ability to help others is not limited by situations like this, but it's extended. I am somebody who believes in altruism, and now I can actually engage myself in that, and I'm feeling so good about it. Some people are saying that I did not know that I was alone and I had COVID. I did not know I would be able to take care of myself. I did not even know how to cook, boil an egg, and taking care of myself, cooking things for each other, for myself during COVID. I did it. I did it. So pandemic is not all bad. It is about understanding what I'm capable of. So if we never had the situation, we would have never understood that power. And engaging in activities to nurture ourselves. So eat well, sleep well, take rest, meditate, and most importantly, be kind to yourself. I often hear people saying that, oh, she's doing so many things during this lockdown. I have done nothing. For me, it is like I just feel like lying around. I don't feel like getting out of the bed. There's so many people who are starting so many things. There's startups coming in. One of my friends finished writing a book, and what have I done? Nothing. In situations like this, be kind to yourself. Yes, you have done nothing. So what? Yes, you did not feel like doing so many activities. For you, it was important to rest, absorb what is happening, and experience the emotions. That's fine. We are not in a rat race here. We all have our own pace of adapting to the new change. So talk to yourself like you would talk to a child and say it's fine, it's okay. Every person has his own pace. You did not feel like doing it, you did not do it. And that's absolutely okay. Here, we also need to understand that we have to increase positive emotions. Now, this is different from being positive always. I'm not saying that don't acknowledge the difficult emotions that you're having. Please acknowledge them. When you hear some bad news, take some time to absorb that news, feel the grief, feel the sadness, share with others. But at the same time, also keep another time of the day where you engage in increasing positive emotions. It's sort of maintaining that balance. Right now we are sort of off balance, and that pandemic has put us off balance. So just remembering things from the past. Many people are now like going back and looking through older pictures, reconnecting with older friends, talking about all the nice things about life that has happened, sharing that. So increasing positive emotion has three components. It's like their memories of the past, realities of the present, and expectations of the future. And through all these, you can actually increase your positive emotion. You can think of what are the good things, good memories you had. Spend some time in doing that. Also, right now, think what is happening well for me? What are the opportunities I have right now? And most importantly, think of a brighter future. Viktor Frankl, when in one of the dark days, he said that when I was almost giving up, I started thinking of me giving lecture to other doctors and other people where I'm sharing my experience of the Holocaust camp. I'm writing a book and I'm having seminars. That gave me purpose and that gave me strength and that gave me the, the dose of positive emotions that I required at that time. We can also make our own happiness box. Put in all the things that you like, which brings you happiness. It can be that small comic strip, it can be a bar of chocolate, it can be any other thing, something that is close and personal to you. Create that happiness box. And whenever you're feeling low, just go and run through it. It's very important that we have uh, this practice of maintaining gratitude diary. These times make us feel everything is going wrong, God is being so wrong to us. Whether we believe in God or not, what we need to remember is, however dark it might seem, there are always things to be grateful about. I'm very grateful that I am in my house with my family, where I am being able to actually deliver this talk to all of you, reach out and connect with all of you. I have the privilege, and I'm very, very grateful and humbly grateful for that. I think we always need to remind ourselves what we have, rather than what we do not have. And the last one is cultivate forgiveness. Forgiveness is not something we need to do for others. We just need to let go of the resentment we hold towards others for our own sake. Why hold that back? Hold that grudge back? Why? We have seen, and particularly in the last 2, 3 months, we have seen how transient life is. We are talking to someone, the next we are hearing that the person is gone. Sometimes we have so much of grudge towards someone. I will not talk to you. 1 month, there's one person who's not talked to his friend for a month and then suddenly came to know the friend is no more. He could never forgive himself. That's why just letting go of grudges, particularly in times like these, is important. Relationships are precious. Grudges are not. While it is important to acknowledge that this was done to me, the emotion that we associate with this, every time we think of that, that resentment is not something we need now. So let go of it. Practice forgiveness whenever you can. That will make your life way more peaceful and resilient. And finally, we come to the last step of building resilience, which is connect. I think this entire period where we were grappling through the uncertainties, the difficulties of trying to just ensure that people get fed and to manage with the barge of news of close ones coming in. The most important thing that helped us wade through it is connection. And research has also shown that resilience is heavily enabled by strong relationship and network. It reminds us that we are not alone in this fight. So reaching out to people, connecting with them as much as possible. It need not be like a call always. There can be Zoom fatigue. This new term, Zoom fatigue, has come out. So you need not always call the person. Just a chat, just a hello. And whenever you're feeling too upset, just reach out, connect, form that network. You'll be amazed to see how people are experiencing the same thing with you and how much willing they are to help you. I was amazed. I had seen, and I will take this opportunity also to mention that when we were interacting about this particular um, talk and session, there was one particular night when I needed to find a bed for my friend. was very critical. And Shorobeshwar had been very kind to just, he kept on sending me contacts, whatever contact he had. So he was just one of the kind people who just came in. And that gave me a lot of strength to go through that particular night. Finally, we could get a bed in the morning. So it is important to understand that there is humongous power of connection. It's a power of shared emotion. It's also sometimes tells us that to be aware that, okay, we might have lost a lot of things, but we still have something. There are so many people who are in such a worse situation, and yet they're smiling and they're coming back. The doctor who lost his father to COVID came back to duty the next day. If that is not resilience, then what is? There's so many people who are saying that, okay, I might have lost my family, but I will do whatever. So they're just volunteering to help in any form for the COVID relief. So people together is a very strong power, and there is a humongous power of connection. And this brings me to the end of our resilience steps, and probably brings you to the point where you need to build your resilience building plan. Remember, all of our plan for resilience building is unique. People cannot have the same plan. All I did was I gave an overview of what helps in resilience building. Whatever I told is all research based. So now it's your time to build your own resilience, have your own plan. And these are probably some of the things that might help you to identify your resilience. What can be a part of your resilience plan? So, first is identify the resilience skills and strategy you currently use. What works well? First, write what you're actually doing, because all of you are resilient here. Already, you are actually, um, if you are being able to seek support, that is also something that is an indicator of resilience. So, just identify what are the skills and strategies that you are currently using and what works well. Then identify two resilience skills which you would like to develop further. Write one goal for each of the skills you identified. So if it is connection, I have to work on connection. What is the goal? Okay, I'll probably reach out to two people, two of my old friends through Facebook, maybe a chat. Then identify the potential obstacles in developing these skills. That what can be the obstacles? And find a plan how to overcome those obstacles. So this will help you build your resilience. With this, I would like to thank you all for being very patient and for being a part of this session. Let's all try to first accept what is happening, find a meaning, take care of ourselves, be compassionate to ourselves, make the most of what we have, take control back, and connect as much as possible. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you so much, firstly, on Ananya, for a session. And I will be opening uh, the, the, the discussion for any question and answer, questions that participants have. And of course, I would like to thank you once more that for the first time, at least I felt, I'm sure many of you would also agree, that what it really means to kind of recharge our emotions, right? We usually keep talking about recharging tangible resources, right? Okay, we say that, okay, your business is not doing well, so do you have like the right talent who will take you through these moments of crisis? And then we start reassessing that, okay, with my existing talent, will I be able to be resilient enough? Then people talk of, okay, you are a student, and do you have the right material in this hour of crisis to actually maneuver through it? So we try to see that, okay, will my old textbooks work? Will my old notes work? Or do I have to adapt it to the changing times? But at the end of it, whatever we deal with, our emotions remain where they are, and we try to possibly, kind of hop skip the emotions and reach the point where we want to do things. This truly recharged my emotion. Thank you, uh, Ananya, for very lucidly and also very, very, um, creating a balance of sorts about psychology as a course and psychology as an awareness, and also mental health as an essential element of our well-being. And of course, that these are like my thoughts from my end for sure. But I would like to bring to your attention Niharika's point that she's uh, highlighting, Ananya, that she was reflecting how through the process of being kind to oneself, she quite frequently goes back to her comfort zones. That's what she means. What would you suggest to balance the forward, two steps towards resilience? Because on the one hand, she wants to be in her comfort zone. On the other hand, she's talking about being encroached by ability to take back control of my day and routine. So there is like a sort of a dichotomy of sorts. If you would like to answer that.
Yeah. If I may ask Niharika, she's here. Niharika, can you just elaborate a little bit on the dichotomy? If I'm understanding the question correctly, what you're saying is sometimes you don't, you just end. I'm just reading your chat. Is you're saying that I was reflecting through the process of being kind to oneself. I find myself quite frequently going back to my comfort shows. However, it has, as I realize, encroached my ability to take control of my day and routine. So, what I'm understanding is that because you are going back to your comfort shows, you're probably watching it back to back, and that is sort of taking a particular time out of your routine, and it's very difficult for you to just come back and manage the routine. Have I understood that correctly, your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So one way to manage is it's if you have chunks during the day. So for example, if you have a morning ritual, okay, morning, I'm not going to watch any shows. So I'll have a proper morning ritual. I'll have my breakfast on time. If you have any work, you work for some time. And then for your comfort shows, you just maintain a time. Maybe okay, when I'm having lunch, I'll probably watch my comfort shows and let it roll over through the afternoon. That's fine, and I'll probably watch it till 5 or 6. That also is fine. But you keep another activity, let's say around 6 in the evening, and it need not be like 6, like clockwork 6. It can be 5:30, it can be 6:30. But let's you go for a walk if you have a place to go. I understand there are lots of challenges, but if there is a possibility to go for a walk, so in between you keep a particular time period for this, and this basically is your self care. So what you routine doesn't mean that you have to usurp yourself from activities that keep you happy, but keeping a time period for that so that it doesn't overflow altogether. Or even at night, many people say that, we are just binge watching till 2 or 3 at night. That is not okay. So even if you like that, you have to ensure that whatever, I might start at 8, but by 11:30, max 12, I'm going to sleep. I'm not going to stretch beyond that, even if I have the urge to do that. So if you can bring a little bit of control there, that can really work wonders. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, ma'am. Makes sense. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think there is one more question from Priyadarshini. Can we accelerate the process of grief anyhow, as some people get stuck for months or years? I would suggest that let's not try to accelerate the process of grief, because grief is not something that can be accelerated. Different people take different times, take different periods of time to process grief. So it is important that we give the person the time to process the grief and facilitate uh, whatever we can do from our side to ensure that the grief processing is happening. Like I said, it's very difficult to cover concepts of grief here. I would love to talk about it. I'm not sure whether I will be able to do justice by talking about grief processing so briefly. But there are multiple rituals. There are rituals of continuation, there are rituals of affirmation, there are rituals of reconciliation, which helps us in processing grief. So if we ensure that the person who is grieving is engaging in some of those rituals. And then we give the person whatever time it takes. But as long as you're participating in those rituals, you're not stuck. So we cannot accelerate it. We can only facilitate by being there for the person, not being very preachy, not telling that, why aren't you doing it? Time to get up, chalo, you have to start your life. It's already 2 years. Why are you still grieving? No, not like that. Rather, being there like a shadow, being there like a companion and saying, we understand your emotions. We are here to listen to you. However, these can be some of the things which can be helpful for you. And then talk about the rituals of continuation, reconciliation, affirmation, transition. So I'm sorry, Pradarshini, it's probably difficult for me to cover everything about grief here, but maybe you can read a little bit about the rituals of grief processing and help the person accordingly. Okay. I think that's it. Is there any other question?
There's a question which
Anuswa is. Yes.
I think Anushwa has asked. And prior to that, before taking Anushwa's, I would like to just cite, I saw Srishti's question for you, Dr. Sinha, that firstly, she thanks you for the session. And she mentions that she aspires to be a part of the mental health sector. Can you elaborate how the mental health sector has evolved due to the pandemic?
Okay, that's a very, very important question, I think, because I have realized that we had started becoming more aware of mental health. The stigma associated with mental health had just reduced significantly because of the pandemic, which has directly impacted how there has been a growth in the mental health sector. Since you aspire to be a part of the mental health sector, I think there are, of course, different professions, right? Like mental health is a helping profession at the end of the day. So we can help the person by being you can be a psychiatrist, you can be a counseling psychologist, you can be a clinical psychologist, you can be a psychiatric social worker, you can be a teacher. That also is like being a part of the mental health practitioner. You can be a researcher. There are so many other ways. There can be forensic psychologists, there can be educational psychologists, developmental psychologists. So psychology itself has huge number of branches. But particularly during pandemic, we had seen a significant rise in the sector of psychiatry, clinical psychology, counseling psychology, psychiatric social work, and research. Primarily because pandemic has brought in and sort of showed us how important the need of mental health is, to address your mental health. In situations like this, we always it's so easy to tell that, I have fever, let's take a Calpol and done. But when people were frustrated, they were getting depressed, they were going through anxiety, they did not know. And this is probably where people started talking about it. So this helped us evolve as a mental health sector, because now we have a huge online presence. Because of the online presence, reaching out to mental health professionals has evolved significantly. We are no longer we don't have to no longer go to a psychologist for therapy sessions. Now, there are lots of challenges that we have overcome through this, because many people could not come out, let's say, of their office and have the session, which is like 20 kilometers from their office, and then go back. They have to take leaves, and sessions, as you know, it's regular. You have to be available at that time. But now you can take the session from anywhere. There is no stigma associated, because many people where are you going? I saw you outside that mental health care clinic. What happened to you? What's so wrong? But now, on one hand, people are not asking that, because they are now appreciating that we are reaching out to mental health professionals. And second, the stigma is definitely going down, and you don't have to just go to that place. You can just do it from any place of your convenience. So that has immensely opened up the space for how you can be involved as mental health professionals. So if you want to be a psychiatrist, I don't know which level you are in, but you have to do your MBBS and then your MD in psychiatry. If you want to be a clinical psychologist, you have to do your master's in psychology, then an MPhil in a residential hospital, and then only you can be an RCI registered clinical psychologist. You can be a counselor, by completing your master's in psychology. And there is a significant difference between counselor and clinical psychologist, particularly in terms of the kind of clients you deal with. You can be a psychiatric social worker, we have MSW, and then you can actually do MPhil in PSW, psychiatric social work, and PhD in PSW. So this is primarily the place where you can have your degree, and then you can work in hospitals, you can work in clinics, you can work online, you can join an online space, you can have your own website and work. At the end, you need to understand you have to be an ethically competent practitioner. You need to complete your education. There are multiple ways. And if not this, if you're not a person who is very comfortable with this one-to-one thing or group settings where you have to interact with a lot of things, research in psychology is it's the need of the hour now. So many people have delved into understanding how this pandemic has impacted. And so that is also one more area that you can explore. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess we can take Anushua's question now.
Yes. So Anushya, I think, has asked two questions. She's asking, as common people where we are listening to other people's issues, how do we help people understand their resilience? How do we communicate that to our near and dear ones? Okay. And also sometimes we see that people who aren't emotionally expressive are resilient. How do we address this? How do we help these people to be vulnerable? Okay.
Kind of add a little point, Dr. Sinha, to extension to Anushwa's question, because it reminds me of of the position of the parents, to so many children or students. Like even in my profession, when we are counseling or we are training people, the pandemic kind of created a stir not only amongst the students, but a stir even amongst their parents. Now, say for example, like the students who are attending and the participants who are part of this session, that it might be important to kind of share and communicate the takeaways from the session with their families and with their parents, because sometimes there's a little communication gap between the two entities, one the students and the other the parents. So if you can address that point also in context of Anushwa's question.
Okay, I'll take the liberty to sort of go a bit generic in this response, because I think there's something that I would anyway like to communicate to parents. So what we have seen is parents, and of course, I guess we are talking about adolescents or just college students. For them, particularly adolescent period is something where is a stage where we look for identity. We have this need to have a separate identity. We want to do things on our own. We need our space. There's so many changes going on in our lives and in our physical body as well. There's so many changes going on. Emotional self, there's so many significant changes going on that adolescents and young adults, they need space. So my urge first to parents is that please provide them with the space. Since they did not really anticipate the stage coming, the college, like they're going and meeting with people, then going out, just hanging around with them, doing other stuff. These are things that adolescents and young adults thrive on. That helps in their personal growth and development. So if they are at home, let's not be very stingy about what time they are waking up, whether they are having the breakfast, watching the TV or not watching the TV, how long they're talking over the phone call. Like if we are like constantly entering and encroaching into their space and like, okay, why are you what are you doing, whom are you talking to, let me see, you are saying that you are watching this particular thing, let me just see what you're doing. So these are very, very difficult for young adults and adolescents to manage. So it's a little bit of deviation from resilience, but I think more about the well-being during this lockdown, that we need to ensure that let's give them that space. They need that. If they're locking the door for a while, let's respect their boundaries. If they're saying that I'm just I'm going to have take a nap and I don't want you to come and disturb me. Just give that to them, because it's very important that they have that space, because they're not being able to have that space outside. And I do understand that there can be safety concerns as well. Now, if they say that, okay, we want to go out for a walk, or we want to go out cycling, instead of just saying, no, you can't do that, if you can just sit with them and acknowledge that, I do understand how difficult and frustrating it might be to sit at home. It's very difficult, a feeling. Just acknowledge that, pause, and see what the person is saying. And say, I'm just concerned about this thing. How can we find a midway where you don't expose yourself, yet you get your independence? So instead of being the parent who is telling what to do and controlling and managing, let the young adult or the adolescent just take control. And even if that means that they are not doing a few things on their own on time, it's probably okay during this period, because what we are saying is, you make your own routine, you find your own space, you do your things, you take charge. So let them take charge instead of another entity taking charge of their lives. So this probably goes same for when they talk about, sometimes like, why aren't you attending the classes? Why are you meeting off the class? Have you done your assignment? What about this exam? What happened to your exam? So don't go there as an attack. The environment itself is like quite attacking right now. So let's not make this all the more threatening. Instead, let's be a little bit more empathetic. Like, it's so difficult. How are you managing your assignments? Did you have any interesting assignments lately? Do you want to share it? And if the students are saying, no, I don't, then just back off. So these are some of the things that you might do as parents, and also help them find out what is the way ahead. They are anxious, they're apprehensive, they're very, very anxious about what is going to happen next because of the pandemic. Many things had gone. So sit with them, but not like, I don't think you're working enough for the next entrance exam. Rather, like, just do your bit. If it doesn't work out, we'll figure out a way. These are the things I can think right now to help you. How do you want me to help you further? Do you want me to find out a few things? Treat them as adults and help guide them, because they need that subtle balance between guidance and independence. Having said that, I'll just come back to Anusua's question. First of all, I think we need to understand that we all have different languages of resilience. So a person who is not very emotionally expressive may not have been emotionally expressive since their childhood. That doesn't mean that only the person who is showing their vulnerability and being expressive is the resilient one. Maybe in their mind they are resilient. What matters is, how am I appraising the adverse event? How much impact I think the adverse event will have on my present and my future? How do I plan to go back? So, and I can do all of these by even not being too emotionally expressive. So if I'm, let's say, sitting in one corner and not really participating in what I'm doing, let's not force the person to be vulnerable if the person is not ready to be vulnerable. So if you really think that, okay, probably this person is in denial, or the person is not willing to share as much he or she would like to share, or is willing to share, you can just gently nudge, very non-judgmental space, and say, is there anything that you would like to talk about? And then talk about your things. Like, it has been so difficult for me lately. These are the things I have been going through. I'm wondering, how are things for you? If you go like that, maybe the person, if the person is willing, will probably open up. But at the end, we need to respect a person's autonomy. If the other person is not willing to open up about his or her vulnerabilities and is choosing to be emotionally non-expressive, we probably need to give that space to that person. But reminding the person of what they had achieved during this pandemic, that is probably the way to help them understand their resilience. So if you can just remind, like, I was just thinking that it must have been so difficult for you to be stuck at home in the situation, doing these things day to day, so different, yet I always see you smiling. I always see you willing to try something new. It's like so encouraging. I have so much to learn from you. If you can just say that, the other person will, one, know what their resilient skills are, and two, will feel appreciated and recognized, which is very important. So I think that's it in a nutshell to an answer to your question.
I, th- I think we can take one final question from Dr. Himani.
Yes.
You might like to share your views on that, Dr. Sinha.
Yeah, I'm just reading through that question. She's saying that pandemic have impacted our lives. The one who remains the most affected are women and children. How do we bring them in so that can access the resources and pay attention to their mental health? Considering the digital divide, people from villages are not being able to access the resources and get in touch with the helplines by various organizations. How do we cover them? I think that's an excellent question, Dr. Himani. Thank you for putting that out. Because a lot of our discussion nowadays is probably because we are using the digital medium, we are limiting our reach to only the people who have access to that. I'm not sure how, like, I'm probably not sure of all the various ways by which we can reach out, but one is initiating a dialogue on these forums, also enhancing the need or emphasizing the need that women and children might need a little bit more attention, and their challenges, their unique challenges. If we can just, in our dialogues, if we try to reach out and we try to talk about that, probably we can reach out to some stakeholder who might be doing something. So I'll just give you an example that not in this one, in the last pandemic, I happened to have one Facebook live where I was talking about mental health and COVID and all, and they were talking about multiple things. But after that, one of the participants who had seen the live came back and said, I would like to do something in this regard. I just need your assistance in that. She was running an NGO, and she actually started connecting with the NGO and like got some inputs from me, and then she implemented that. So I think, although this is the digital medium, we still have a scope of reaching out to people who can make a difference. The other can be identifying NGOs or volunteer groups, because I know there are so many volunteer groups right now who have just jumped in, and particularly there are specific groups who are working for women and children. So if we can just ask, like, if the little, just a simple Google search or asking our contacts that, I'm willing to do something for women and children. I'm willing to help any NGO that you're aware of, any volunteer group you're aware of, and then volunteering yourself. Like, for example, if I today know that, okay, there is a voluntary group who is specifically working with women and children during this in village areas, and if this place is near to me, near to my where I stay, so it's in my city, I'll probably volunteer to go and have a session there. If not, if I can record a session and this person can go and show it to them, although they do not have that access, but if they can show the recording in a laptop and then have a discussion with them, tying up with panchayats and local committees, talking to the people who actually do groundwork with people, I think probably that is the way to reach out to them as much as possible. And I do believe and strongly emphasize, I'm very happy that you brought it up, that it is the need of the hour. Probably we are not doing enough for the people who do not have these privileges, these digital privileges and other privileges. So thank you, and I hope you find the perfect organization through which, and if I can be of any help in any form, please reach out to me.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Can I ask a question?
We can take one question, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So hi, I'm Anjali. Actually, I recently graduated from psychology field, and as whatever is going around, like the COVID situation, so when I was graduating, we did a counseling course, and on our ongoing campus, we acted as a first responder to students of our campus who was facing issues or problems. And if as a psychology student, obviously we know some of the symptoms that we can surely say it's towards the severity, and they need a counseling as a profession, like professional counseling or something. So we direct them to our counseling center. We had a setup in our college only. So obviously now after I graduated, I thought of doing it for the general public through social media and through obviously with the help of Sauraveshwar sir. So I don't know how, like, can we act as a first respondent? Like, we some students who are just graduated, and I don't know about the ethical issues right here, because we'll be just talking to this some of the people who will approaching us with their problems, and maybe it can just be a day-to-day problem where they're not able to, carry on with the day-to-day activities, or they are just, depressed, or they don't know they don't have any friends to talk to. We can act as a person to them, and if we feel like they are going to severity, or there are symptoms that they can go to depression, or they are too much anxious about people, so we can approach the psychologist. We know, like, there are 4 to 5 psychologists we know who are professional and they're practicing. So I don't know how much it can be of help and we can do it or not. So
Okay, so what you're asking basically if you can be the first responder, right?
yes, to the general public, like ethically it's right or not.
It's actually a challenging question. Why? Because the minimum qualification to be um, called as a psychologist, or where you qualify to see clients, is masters, and after that you can see people as a counselor, and then you need to do an MPhil, and that will help you be a clinical psychologist. You'll have an RCI registration, and you can practice. After graduation, if you are doing it, um, the ethical part is that in graduation we only cover through certain things, in a very we just skim through the broader areas. That doesn't give us the, yeah, I'll come to you. So so we know that in our university also, I am aware of the syllabus. So I'm aware that there are papers on abnormal and counseling. But what doesn't happen in graduation is there is no intervention-based training, like a skills training. It's more about a knowledge. That sort of puts us in a very difficult ethical situation, because ethically, we follow the principle of beneficence and non-maleficence. While reaching out and being there for somebody can be beneficial, if we are not doing what needs to be done then as a practitioner, which usually comes through training, we might end up, there can be even a 0.1%, but there can be a 0.1% chance of doing harm, which is something we say that we cannot do. However, having said that, it's important, and I really appreciate the fact that you're trying to help out people. And I always believe very strongly that nobody should be stopped from helping people out. If you have the best intention, then nothing should be stopping you from helping people. So if whatever you're doing, if that can be supervised regularly by some professional clinical psychologist, where you go and report and everything is being done, and you do it from a, not really as a counselor, but more about as a screening, that okay, this is what you're doing, this is how we will connect you to other people. And if this entire process can be done under supervision, probably then the ethical aspects can be taken care of. But otherwise, just very core ethically speaking, particularly from the ethics of competence, as I was just talking about a little bit earlier, this might be slightly challenging. So just go through it in a very nuanced way. Try to find if there is anybody willing to support you in this wonderful endeavor of yours, and then see how you can tweak it so that you do your part, which is where you are competent in, and then the streamlining, you're already streamlining. So if there can be a little bit of supervision in the process of streamlining also. Right?
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your questions. And Dr. Sinha, the level of patience and the type of energy, I believe, like we have all consumed, and we are now, kind of sharing with each other, will definitely help us to embrace, the issues ahead, as you mentioned, within our own best possible fit. Keeping what Rupsha actually highlights, thanking you for the session, which also touched me, as well as I believe many of you would be that the entire starting point of the why me narrative, and the little hack that you helped us to really acquire, that really was one of my highlights, and definitely could be the highlights of many other participants. The other point which I clearly remember, it stuck with me even now, is the fact that how you spoke about networks being part of resilience building. uh, and I can assure you, which I keep on telling so many of our students, that throughout this pandemic, especially from the last 1.5 years, I have been, I would say, I would rather call it like abnormally active on networking on LinkedIn, and I accept it. I don't know, like I'm using the word abnormal because I keep on like wanting to connect to people throughout. What I realize is that, more than always trying to connect for a specific reason, the fact that I'm connecting, and that connection can lead to maybe a little conversation, a little chat, and maybe through some of those conversations, some more extension, in terms of plans or opportunity might be, created. Or even if I don't take talk of opportunities always, but just the fact that we knew each other and we appreciated each other's work, right? And in that conversation also, like, we send a message that, okay, in any way, if I can be of help to you, right? Or if you can share something that you might be looking for, and like I have been in this space for some years now, and that helped me, I believe now, thanks to your session, to really I would say maintain my bit of resilience in these challenging times. Of course, uh, 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 it goes without saying, which I would also like to highlight, which Dr. Sinha pointed out through a question, was the importance of mental health practitioners, right, in the context of the sector. Um, I was very keen to understand, like, from Dr. Sinha right at the beginning, that she is to me like a bridge between academia and the sector, because from the academia, people who are graduating, completing their masters, and they are moving on to practice in the sector. Dr. Sinha has been at both the ends. So one very critical aspect which struck me again, I would like to emphasize, is that, if I'm not mistaken, um, the importance of maybe digital healthcare support and telemedicine has possibly been highlighted in this session also, considering that mental health intervention, provided the digital divide is minimized and you have the infrastructure, it can still be run to a great extent, right? That possibly allows us to even, like, advocate for mental health sector more vividly across not just mental health practitioners and people from backgrounds of mental health, but maybe also advocate for mental health sector to maybe the IT industry, to maybe the programmers, the coders, the investors, right? To healthcare services who might be wanting to kind of repurpose, or kind of uh, uh, like diversify or broaden their scope of impact, right? So this has been like a wonderful session, Dr. Sinha, and I would like to thank you. I would like to thank each participant, to turn up for a session where, to be very clear, we did not talk about, like, maybe say direct prospects of a career opportunity, or of a specific course, or an university, or a college, or say of a deadline per se, but we spoke about a lot of internalization, a lot of like, the self-building mechanism. And the fact that so many of you turned up gives us renewed hope for the coming days. And 1.5 hours we spent here today felt like a breeze. So thank you so much once more, Ananya, for your time. And we would love to like take this forward. We would definitely be sharing a feedback form with all the participants. And if more questions are captured through that form, we would love to run it, if possible, by Dr. Sinha, if there is a scope that we can do it. And we will definitely like to build on the lines that we have set out today in the session. Thank you so much once more, everyone, for your time.
Thank you again. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I would like to be associated with this movement that you have started in terms of, I know you are doing a lot of things in different areas. So in whatever way I can be of help, I would love to be associated. Thank you so much.
Truly appreciate it. Thank you so much, participants. All of you stay well, stay connected.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. I think it was such an insightful session. Thank you again.
Thank you. Stay safe, everyone.
Stay safe, everyone. And do like maintain all COVID protocols and get your vaccines at the earliest. I just got mine 2 hours back. So do that. Thank you.